Today we're visiting the artist formerly known as Spartacus Chetwynd and currently known as Marvin Gaye Chetwynd. From Star Wars to Milton's Paradise Lost, and from Japanese anime to the Canterbury Tales, the Turner Prize-nominated performative artist regularly harmonises the antiquated with the contemporary to bizarre effect in order to interrogate such themes as society, human nature and taboo. However, Chetwynd is undertaking something slightly less idiosyncratic, having been commissioned to conceive what we're sitting in today, the Idol, an original soft play centre and part of the development of the new Abbey Leisure Centre in Barking. Marvin, can you tell us a little bit about the origin of this project? So, from Create London approaching you, and then your initial ideas about what you could possibly do with the space.
I was approached through email, and I was excited to get the email immediately because it was an unusual, it was different type of work, and I was excited because it was in the real world, as it were, not just the art world. Mm-hmm. So I was excited by the actual functionality of the work, and that I'd be working with a team. And then I had to make a proposal. So there was, I think it was 3 artists or 4 artists shortlisted, or not, they weren't really shortlisted, you were invited to apply, as it were. And I made my proposal very sort of possibly really open, because I really, really wanted the job. I was so excited to get the job. I wanted to make my proposal seem very flexible. But the main kind of gist of what I was offering to do was to galvanise the 2 areas that seem to be soft play. So there's the area that's the play area for children, and there's this sort of non-space cafe area for the parents. And I wanted, one of the main points I wanted to introduce was to try to bring them together, to galvanise them somehow, so that the parents would be as excited to be coming to the soft play as the children. So the area that was the cafe, I wanted to make that more glamorous in some way. And then the other main point I had in my proposal was to make it the structure less box-like and more sculptural, the actual structure to be a shape, rather than the theme, which seems to be always the case with soft play, is literally just sort of pinned on with banners. So the sort of, you know, if it's a jungle, you're told it's a jungle by placing a picture on the outside of the box with a monkey and a palm tree on it. So I was quite excited about making a difference, and I was really hoping that I'd win the job. But that was the beginning of it, if that answers you. It was like in a proposal.
So, yeah. And was there, so it's based around this form of the Dagenham idol? Was
yes.
that something that was in the initial
proposal?
No,
that
did you discover this later?
That definitely was not in the original proposal. I didn't have an exact idea of what the structure should be. I was actually talking about things like jaguars and or like sort of something like ferocious animals with giant fangs. But I don't know how appropriate that would be. It's hard to know, because you never know with children how gothic they are. It's like one of those, I don't know, you can guess. But to begin with, I wasn't actually pinning down what the structure should be. It was more, that's what I was trying to say. It sounds really awful, like I'm really cunning or sort of savvy, but I was trying to keep my proposal open because I was trying to get the job. I really wanted the job. Like, I found the job was exciting because of the fact that you as an artist would be working, and perhaps for once in my life I would be employed in a sort of functional way. I was really excited about that. So I wasn't really trying to dream up an idea that I would have to impose on a team of people, and I was frightened also that they wouldn't pick that. I wanted to show that I was flexible. Mm-hmm. And the idol came through Marika, who is my boss within the project. She's the I don't know what she is, project manager? Should we ask her?
Sounds good. Let's go with that.
She's been brilliant to work with, and she's come up with quite a few of the ideas, because we both have children. She has slightly older little ones, and we've been talking about how you don't want to have your child sort of dictated to and with sentimentality, that you want maybe the themes and the ideas to be as imaginative as possible. And she brought into the mix the Medusa, for example, and also the Dagenham Idol, which I thought, when she first produced it as a possible concept, I was thinking it's too difficult because it's this quite tough piece of stick. He looks like almost like Stick Man or something. He's not that sumptuous as a little sort of stick sculpture. With, you know, how can he compete with a transformer? But then I thought, why not put him in a transformer? So that's what we've come up with. It's a sort of, the Dagenham Idol's meant to be almost within a completely ridiculous robot suit.
Mm-hmm. So a 21st century reimagining.
If only.
If only. That's a good way to put it.
If only ancient history was allowed to do things like that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think, well, I can see that. The robotic structure is obviously very present. And did you work, so you worked with primary schools in the build-up to this?
There's one Gascoigne primary school. That was great experience. There was a day workshop particularly there, but also there were some other ones in community centres. All of it was good. The Gascoigne school was just amazing. They were really, you know how kids can be just, the sky's the limit with imagination? Mm-hmm. They were really exciting. They'd been sort of primed before I arrived by the Create team, and they'd made really exciting plasticine sculptures of what they would design. So then I had to come along and say something, well, there's structural engineering, and there's British standards, and so I was this kind of poo-pooing...
The voice of reason, as it were.
Normally the opposite, but exactly, I was a little bit like, well, I've had to deal with quite a lot of compromises, but your plasticine imaginative ideas are better than mine. They had, one of them was to make a pizza, a swimming pool like a pizza. Mm-hmm. They just had really quite ridiculous ideas, they were good. And then I was also having to do strange kinds of, I don't know, like interactive play with them as well, which was quite natural. I don't know, it sounds ridiculous, but there was a lot of very sort of interactive workshops. But the end result is that we tested the idea with them a little bit, and they seemed to love it, so that was good.
Yeah, what more can you ask for, I guess? In terms of
massive robots.
In terms of a more
cyborg
practical note, I guess, where did you look for inspiration of maybe utilitarian buildings? Did you say it was important and you were excited about doing something that was in society and kind of in a community?
What other references and sources?
Did you
I was really, at the beginning I was really excited to use geodesics and Buckminster Fuller's ideas, because I've loved them, and I think they're quite obsessive. There's something about them that if someone else has touched them, you won't be able to stop talking. And normally you build 3 domes before you have a success, and you become it's quite a sort of insider knowledge. It's strange, but I wanted to suggest a geodesic shape, but when we researched it, the House of Play couldn't manage to make the joints which is always the problem with the geodesics, but the basic structure is scaffolding, and they have certain clamps. So then I started understanding, actually more practically, not to dream about wonderful architecture that exists. I was wanting to visit their House of Play's factory in Astraban. It's a sort of showcase soft play in a massive hangar, like a big warehouse hangar in Doncaster, and I went there. And I don't know if you've heard this story. Did you hear what happened?
I didn't know. Could you tell us?
It was because it's such a famous story. Okay. I'm surprised you haven't heard. But there's a lot of different brilliant interactive play, sort of in soft play on display. So obviously kids play in it too, but it's also a showcase. So you can climb in them and understand what a mouse hole is and what a, I don't know, ball pit is, all these different features. And one of them was a drop slide that's 6 meters high. And I assumed that I should just try everything. You know, when you sort of think, okay, I'll just try all of the things that are on display. And so when it came to actually doing the drop slide, you had to sign a disclaimer. You know, is that the right word? When you're signing your life away. Yeah. And it's like, well, you have to write your age. And it's like ridiculous how old I am to be doing that. It was like one of those things where I started getting a little bit nervous at that moment. But then when you're crossing your arms and legs and edging yourself forward to the edge of the slide, and your brain is telling you not to, and your body's still going, and then you basically drop for 6 meters and then scoot forward. And I was proud of myself, but there's a video and I look ashen. And then also it was quite impressive what happened, that the women who work there, like the formally, you know, instructing whether to take your shoes off, the people who are employed to run the centre, all started rushing towards me. And they started like touching me and holding my shoes, and I was the first adult to have done the drop slide in the whole building. But then that leads to the feature here. I really wanted a 6 metre high drop slide here, but actually the runoff is obviously crucial. The space is fantastically tall, but it didn't. You would have to compromise the shape of the robot. The shoulder would have had to be compromised to the point where you might not recognise the robot anymore. So that was a compromise where I gave in.
Okay.
But I haven't Buckminster Fuller was someone, to answer you more shortly. Buckminster Fuller had to abandon it because of practicalities.
Okay. I was wondering, because, and obviously you have to outsource to these kind of companies and to people that can build these structures. And your work
I think outsource is a weird word. I'd say it's a collaboration.
Okay. But with it, because I always think of you...
Does outsource mean you tell them to make something?
I don't know. I think just bringing in a team, because I always thought of you as at the heart of your work. If you look at, say, the show at Nottingham Contemporary, and you look at the various projects that you dress up, and you're in the heart of this thing. Maybe you didn't think it was strange then to
that's really interesting
collaborate,
what you said,
yes, but to corroborate in a way that meant that you weren't physically in the heart of the building process.
No, but I don't know. I haven't been on site like making cups of tea for people. I haven't got that much into the construction, but the amount of contact I've had with the design was once a week on Skype meetings with Marika and the design team. And there's this really great designer who works at House of Play called Grace Fiddler. So it was a really good sort of locking of heads every week on the design. And then afterwards with the construction, visiting the site and then coming here, visiting the site, I weirdly do feel, it sounds really embarrassing saying it because I've never thought of saying it like this, but I do actually feel as if I've been in the heart of it, which is really embarrassing. I feel it sort of sounds so emotional. But that would actually be a really good way of explaining how I have been involved, because I haven't been able... I didn't, when I did the proposal, I didn't want to be someone who imposed ideas on a team. I wanted to be in the team, working with people and understanding the compromises, and that's what I thought was exciting. And then, to my surprise, what I understood was I actually have to lead a lot of the decisions. So I've had to be really, like, is it when you're executive, like I've actually had to be really kind of good at saying what to do and when, which has been amazing to me. I didn't think it would be like that, but I do feel really as if I've been very much like in the performances. Weirdly, it's your question that's making me talk to you about this, because when I don't know how to say it, it's interesting. Your question's interesting, and I think it's one of the things that's relevant to me at the moment, because where am I going to develop? People keep pushing you to become more robust when actually I'm a really informal person, and then this job is it's a direction that I can see that I'm really useful, and that I'm working with something that is literally more robust, but also my way of working seems to suit it, my informality and my wanting to be involved. And what is it called when it's I can't remember the word now, but everyone always says it when the curators work with me. It's when you're very involved, they say. You're very involved. Lots of artists are very distant, aren't they, from the process?
Because I was going to ask, it's like kind of maybe that answers it already, but where you think this work fits into the narrative of your other works, because people looking at, say, still images of each work would obviously draw a huge leap between, say, The Fall of Man or An Evening with Jabba the Hutt, and then you jump to The Idol, and it's this wonderful structure. But I mean,
so you're saying you see a consistency?
I was wondering whether you did, and I mean, you've almost answered it to an extent.
Well, to some, I'd give the curator, I don't know what to call her, project manager curator Marika, credit in drawing me out, because it always seems to me that I work organically, and for example, through doing recently a show at Sadie Cole's gallery where I did the usual black and white wallpaper hangings that I usually do, these big strips of basically paper sellotaped together so they make a backdrop. And then also from doing that, which was for the Canterbury Tales book, so it was this actually strangely productive, enjoyable show for me, although it's so strange that possibly that it comes from with commercial galleries, I find a lot of freedom, weirdly, with the shows. But anyway, that developed. Then at Studio Voltaire again, I did the huge wallpaper. And then Marika drawing me out to put the wallpaper into a more permanent material onto the walls here. So it's organic, but through these different episodes of working hard on different projects, and the curators suggesting things, and me being flexible enough to meet the job, I'd say. But I'd say it's... I haven't quite got overview from this. I'm just excited to see it complete. Yeah.
No, me too. I do, because the wallpaper especially, it looks exactly like the Some Canterbury Tales works to an extent. So that was the show with Bat Opera in the basement, wasn't it? Yeah. So there is a narrative, I'd say, a consistency.
That's great, though, if you're saying that.
Definitely.
I think that means that we've been successful. I think that exactly maybe I'm sounding a bit like bitten, or like, you know, when you've had a hard conversation with someone and you feel a bit shy about certain subjects. But I had a conversation recently through being interviewed, and it was dismissive of the interest of it being functional. The person kept saying, but is it art? And I kept saying, I don't even care. Don't you understand how exciting it is that it's functional and it's brilliant? But what you're saying, in fact, meets that and says that it sounds as if we've kept the continuity of my like fresh, excitable way of working and managed to fit into this more functional structure. So it's great. You're being generous.
I'm not. I think I'm being honest, really.
That's good. That's brilliant.
I think so. But is it, so it hasn't been hard at all to say, drop the space that you would ordinarily dedicate to taboo, or kind of these areas of the bizarre?
No, there's tiny bits and pieces, like, for example, no nudity. But to be honest with you, like, I've been brought up Catholic. Why would I be disrespectful to another organised religion? I just wouldn't do it. I've actually been brought up with the sensitivity to understand the rules. I really do get the rules. And in this case, it's not the right place to be shaking down the walls. It's actually the subtle forms of rebellion, of making a fun structure that's more breaking the taboo.
Do you think the way you've worked on this project, so with teams and having to plan quite far in the future, opposed to just getting into the middle of a gallery, do you think this will affect the way you approach work in the future, be it subject matter or just tactics, as it were?
I don't know, when we presented to the council, I got really emotional. I was so happy they were happy. I think I cried. It really matters to me that they were happy. And they said something like they had another space to do another soft play. And I was immediately like, I'd love to. Because the thing that I've understood from this is that we've had to fit the brief of the narrow space that was meant to be a climbing wall. And that if you had a whopper of a hanger, you could do anything. You could do you know what I mean? You really could have that 6-metre drop slide that is crucial to every 12-year-old's day. Yeah, I think I'm quite sort of addicted to problem solving in that way, and it would definitely lead to other realistic, functional ways of work. I'd love to, but when it comes to doing my own work, I don't think so. There's something too offhand and throwaway about the way I work with the performances. I'm doing one here. Which is slightly separate to the way that we've worked on the structure. It's allowed to be how I normally work. It's very throwaway. Yeah.
I'm going to ask, by means of building to a conclusion, I'm going to reword that journalist's question. Journalist that you didn't feel was, well, I didn't feel was being fair. So if we look at it as, say, a Venn diagram of artwork and playground, or aesthetic and utilitarian, do you see that this does exist in a middle ground? Does it serve both purposes? Does it serve one or the other, or do you just not care?
I would say that oddly, I sort of don't care, but that must be some sort of defensive mechanism in me that enables me to still be an artist. That must be something there, which, like, you know, like Water Off a Duck's Back, you just sort of have this quite tearaway attitude, because otherwise you'd be crying all the time, like it's too sensitive and too strange. But the main excitement that I felt was linking to the constructivists in Russia in the, whenever it was, like the turn of the century to like 1920, it's sort of between this time, isn't it? Where it's really exciting that you feel this energy where they were like rushing to get art out of the studio into the streets and using billboards and making scarves, and I just felt it in that energy. I literally was like, this is brilliant, this is like art out of the studio, it's into the life, and I feel like it's really successful in that way, and I wish it happens more. I wish that artists are treated in that way and thought of as useful and can contribute. Yeah, I think it's great. If that could be possible.
I think so. I think that's it. So
great.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.